Abdul was a man molded by the mud of the Shariatpur district in Bangladesh. His hands, thick and permanently stained with the fertile dark earth, knew the language of the paddy field better than any book. He was the anchor of his sprawling joint family, his gentle, worn wife, Amina, his two sharp-eyed children, Babul, who was 10, and little Parul, his aged parents, whose medical needs were an invisible, persistent drain, and his younger brother and sister, whose education was Abdul's self-appointed burden. He was the sun around which their small, struggling world revolved, and the sun was setting quickly on their meager savings. One scorching afternoon, beneath the weary shade of a mango tree, Abdul met a man named Rafiq. Rafiq wasn't from the next village. He spoke with the slick, confident accent of Dhaka, wearing shoes that stayed miraculously clean. Rafiq spoke of a place called Russia, a land of endless snow and unimaginable money. 5 lakh taka, Rafiq murmured, his voice persuasive as honey. 5 lakh taka is nothing for a lifetime of ease. You work 3 years, you come back a rich man. You pay off every debt, your children go to the English medium school, your house becomes pukka. 5 lakh taka, BDT 500,000. It was a sum so vast, it felt like talking about the moon. But Rafiq showed Abdul a flickering video on his small cheap phone, gleaming white buildings, roads without potholes, and men who looked like him, laughing, holding wads of foreign currency. The seed of a desperate hope was planted. That night, the single kerosene lamp cast long dancing shadows on the mud walls of their room. Amina sat beside him, grinding spices, her face catching the light. Russia, Abdul whispered, testing the sound of the foreign word. He told her everything, the money, the speed, the future. Amina's eyes, usually clouded with the fatigue of endless chores, suddenly shone with a fierce, almost terrifying brightness. She saw a future without the humiliation of debt, a future where her daughter Parul didn't have to wear her brother's hand-me-down sandals. "Go, my husband," she urged, laying her small, calloused hand over his powerful one. "We will manage here. Just send back the money." But when he spoke to his parents, the reaction was fire and stone. "Russia?" His father, a diabetic man whose eyesight was failing, scoffed. "Who goes to the land of snow? We are farmers, Abdul. Our roots are here. You are the only tree in this yard. If you go, who waters us?" His mother wept, clutching the end of his lungi. "These brokers are vultures, son. They feed on desperation. This is a trick." They pleaded and warned, invoking ancestors and religious duty. Yet their strong objections only hardened Abdul's resolve. He didn't see it as disobedience. He saw it as an ultimate sacrifice, the only path left to save the very family that objected to his saving them. He had to go. The hunt for BDT 500,000 began. Amina was the first to act. She gathered her jewelry, the heavy silver anklets that she had worn since her wedding, the delicate gold nose pin that was a gift from her mother, and the single gold chain, a symbol of their unity. It wasn't much, the gold was thin, but it was all she owned of intrinsic value. She sold it all in the market, the metal cold and heavy in her palm one last time. It fetched 80,000. It felt like a fortune, yet it was barely a ripple in the sea of his requirement. Next came the land, the 4 bighas of rich, dark paddy field, the only piece of inheritance Abdul possessed, the land that gave them their identity and their food, had to go. The sale was a funeral without a body. Abdul felt the soul drain from his body as the deed was signed. His father refused to even look at him that day. The land brought in BDT 250,000. They were still BDT 170,000 short. He had no collateral left but the home itself, his ancestral house, made of strong, ancient bamboo and corrugated tin, stood on a small plot that was still technically his. He went to the local Mahajan, a loan shark named Kabir, known for his ruthless grip. Against the house, a high-interest loan only, Kabir licking his lips, his eyes calculating the misery. The interest rate was punitive, designed to bleed a borrower dry. He signed the papers, the ink on the ledger feeling like acid on his skin. This loan covered the rest. The money was handed over to Rafiq. Rafiq then introduced a second, shadier broker who, for an extra $50,000, fabricated a passport, a rushed, poorly executed forgery that promised passage into the unknown. Crossing the initial checkpoints required one final, sickening transaction. A handful of 100 taka notes slipped into the hand of a corrupt immigration officer, a bribe to turn a blind eye to the fraudulent documents. The day of departure was shrouded in a thin, cold fog. Babul clung to his father's leg, too young to understand the magnitude of the journey. Parul wept silently into Amina Sari. Abdul embraced his mother and sister, then approached his father. His father, sitting on the rickety wooden bench, only nodded, his face a mask of grief and disapproval. "Bring back what you went for, son, and bring yourself back too." He carried that burden onto the plane, leaving behind the smells of cow dung, wood smoke, and paddy, the only life he had ever known, for the sterile, scentless air of the metal tube that carried him toward the snow. The Moscow airport was a terrifying landscape of glass, metal, and faces that held no warmth. Abdul felt instantly small and invisible. He was met not by Rafiq, but by a fellow Bangladeshi named Mondol, whose eyes were dull with resignation, and a large, silent Russian man with a jaw like concrete. Abdul, still buzzing with the excitement of arrival, smiled broadly. "Thank you, brothers. I am Abdul. I am ready to work." Mondol barely managed a grimace. "Follow us. You'll be ready for nothing in a minute." The welcome was the beginning of his and his family's nightmare. Abdul's promised job, a skilled position in construction, vanished into thin air. He was taken to a vast, freezing warehouse on the outskirts of the city. His job description? Unloading crates, stacking boxes, and being shouted at in a language he couldn't understand. The pay was the first shock. The local guy, who acted as a foreman and guard, informed him he was working off the cost of his travel and accommodation, a phantom debt that ballooned daily. For the first 2 months, Abdul worked just for food, a bowl of watery soup and a piece of stale bread twice a day. He was housed in a tiny, dilapidated room with 5 other immigrants, 2 men from Vietnam, 1 from Syria, 1 from Nepal, and Jamal. 6 men sharing 1 grimy toilet and a single sputtering electric heater. They slept head to toe on thin mattresses spread over the concrete. The cold was a constant, sharp presence that burrowed into his bones. After 3 months of this grueling routine, the Russian foreman sold Abdul. He was transferred to a second broker, a shadowy figure who dealt in human labor like livestock. This new master moved Abdul to a factory floor where the air was thick with chemical fumes. Here, the labor was worse. He was forced to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no weekends and no holidays. The pay evaporated entirely. He worked for 5 months without a single paycheck. His feet were permanently swollen, his back a knot of pain, and his spirit was turning into something brittle and dark. He was trapped, a ghost in a frozen cage. Back home, in the familiar warmth of Bangladesh, the coldness of Abdul's situation was felt immediately. The first struggle was the children. When Babul and Parul's primary school exam fees were due, Amina had nothing. She stood before the headmaster, her hands clasped, tears streaming, but the policy was absolute. Her children stopped going to school. Babul, a boy of 10, now spent his days wandering aimlessly, his sharp mind dulled by idleness. The situation was replicated with Abdul's younger siblings. They were on the verge of graduating from their respective colleges, a source of pride for the family. Without the fee payments, their attendance stopped. The family's future, once pinned on Abdul's sacrifice, was now collapsing on multiple fronts. Abdul's elderly parents, already suffering from chronic diabetes and high blood pressure, were deteriorating rapidly. The small monthly allowance for medicine, now non-existent, meant their conditions were untreated. His father's vision blurred further. His mother's body ached with persistent pain. They needed food, medicine, and peace, and they had none of the three. Amina, the resolute wife, refused to break. She found work in a nearby village, cleaning and cooking in the homes of wealthier families. It was humiliating, back-breaking labor, but it brought in a few hundred taka a week, just enough to buy a handful of rice and some lentils. But humiliation soon turned to degradation. At the home of a local landlord, where she worked long hours, Amina suffered repeated physical abuse. The landlord, a cruel, dissolute man, would strike her if the floor wasn't clean enough or if the food was too cold. She bore the pain silently, her spirit refusing to let the suffering show, knowing that one tear would break the fragile composure of her children. Then came the Mahajan. Kabir, the loan shark, and his men began knocking on their door every afternoon. The interest was compounding, doubling the debt every few months. "Where is the money, woman?" Kabir would snarl, his shadow falling over the terrified children. 7 months, not one taka. Do you think I am a charity? Amina, standing defenseless in her doorway, could only offer the same desperate plea. "Please, brother, my husband will send it soon. He is working in Russia. He will send a big sum. You will have your money." They didn't believe her. 7 months of silence from a foreign land was a death sentence in their community. 30 days, Kabir announced one evening, his voice heavy with finality. 1 month. If the money is not here, the house is mine. We will throw you out and sell the tin and bamboo for scrap. You and your diseased parents will be homeless. Amin could only watch them go, the darkness of their threat engulfing her small home. In the toxic air of the factory, Abdul learned of a new, horrifying option. The rumor circulated among the desperate immigrants: join the Russian army, fight in the ongoing conflict, and in return, you get citizenship and a large sum of money. The choice sickened him. He was a farmer, not a soldier. He had no quarrel with anyone in this world, let alone a country he couldn't find on a map. To fight someone else's war, to kill and die for a passport, felt like the ultimate act of self-betrayal. But the alternative was ruin. He owed the broker a ransom. He owed Kabir the house. His family was staring into the void. What is my life worth if my family is on the street? He signed the papers. The transition was immediate and brutal. The factory uniform was swapped for drab green fatigues. The expected training was a joke. A few weeks of weapon handling, marching drills, and shouted Russian commands that meant nothing to him. Then came the miracle. A cheap, disposable mobile phone slipped to him by a sympathetic junior officer, just long enough to make a call. He called Amina in the dead of the night, using the patchy connection of a remote military camp. "Amina, it is me, Abdul." The cry that escaped her wife was a sound of such profound relief and agony that it tore through the connection. He told her everything, leaving out the worst of the abuse, but detailing the starvation, the endless labor, the deceit of the brokers. Finally, he told her about the army. "I am in the war, Amina. They are sending me to the battleground against Ukraine. They promised citizenship. I had no choice." Amina's quiet sobbing was the only sound on the line. When he spoke to his parents, the silence from his father was more terrible than any curse. "A soldier, Abdul. You went to be a farmer of money, and you have become a harvester of death." They begged him to return. "Come back, my son. We would rather be homeless than lose you forever." But Abdul couldn't. He was a piece of property now, bound by military contracts he didn't understand. There was no permission to go back. He fought for 8 months, and anonymous pawn in a vast, senseless struggle, marching under foreign flags without a clue as to why the bullets were flying. 11 months passed since Abdul left the village. For the first 9, Amina received sporadic, terrifyingly brief calls. A few minutes of a muffled voice confirming he was alive, asking about the children, telling her to be strong. But then, the calls stopped. 3 weeks of absolute silence. Amina was frantic. The loan shark was counting down the days. The children asked about their father every night. She ran to the local government officials, showing them the old fake passport, the last known number, the name of the district he mentioned. They looked at her with pity and suspicion. They had no mechanism to contact a private soldier fighting in a foreign war. 2 more months crawled by. Every knock on the door made her heart leap, first with hope, then with terror. The silence was becoming a weight of certainty. Then, one wet afternoon, the knock was different. It was the village chairman, his face grave, accompanied by a man in a crisp white shirt who carried a sealed envelope. Amina ushered them inside, her limbs suddenly heavy as stone. The man in white read the brief letter, an official document translated poorly from Russian, passed through bureaucratic channels and eventually arriving in her village. The words, cold and official, were the worst news of her life. Abdul had been killed in the battleground. He was listed as a casualty of the conflict. There was a promise of a lump sum payment, a military death benefit, but the process would take months, years perhaps, and required paperwork she didn't possess. Amina didn't scream. She didn't cry. She sat on the floor and stared at the kerosene lamp, watching the flame flicker as the light went out of her own life. The promised 30 days were up. Kabir and his men arrived the morning after the official news was received. They did not care about a foreign document or a promised payment. They only saw the open debt and the house as collateral. They gave the family 2 hours. The sight of the men dismantling the roof, ripping off the corrugated tin sheets Abdul had bought with his own hands, was the last straw for his frail father, already weakened by uncontrolled diabetes and high blood pressure. The shock of losing his son and his home in the same week stopped his heart. He died quietly on the bamboo mat, the last of his breath smelling the familiar, comforting earth. Amina was numbed with shock. She could not mourn. She had to save her children. They were kicked out of the home. With nowhere to live, they moved into a temporary, makeshift shack on the edge of the village, a hovel offered by a merciful neighbor. The family was shattered. Abdul's younger siblings abandoned all hope of college. Babul, now 11, saw the truth in his mother's hollow eyes. He took to the streets of the nearest town. He found a small box, a scrap of cloth and some polish. He became a shoe shiner, a child begging for coins from passing strangers, his small hands working furiously, earning barely enough for 1 meal a day. Amina went back to work, cleaning the homes of the wealthy. The physical abuse from the landlord continued, but now there was no dream of Abdul's return to give her strength, only the grim determination to keep her surviving family alive. No one knows when or if their life will ever get better. The debt remains, the children are uneducated, the parents are gone, and the future is a thick, impenetrable blanket of darkness. Abdul, the farmer who loved his family too much, achieved his dream. He saved his family from debt, but he did it by paying a price far heavier than 5 lakh taka. He paid with his own life, and in doing so, cost his family everything. The only thing left to her was the memory of the scent of paddy and the sight of snow, which had swallowed her husband